Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of what I'm going to be dubbing Does It Hold Up? Basically, I want to go through each and every episode of the original G1 Transformers cartoon and just review every episode. We're going to do it about once a week just because I think that's sensible, it makes sense. And alongside the reviews, I'm going to be releasing audio tracks. So there's going to be a commentary track that I've already recorded that you can use and watch alongside your own personal viewing of the episodes. But we're going to be taking it episode by episode, talking about each and every one that we can talk about from the original 1984 cartoon, The Transformers. And what better place to start than with More Than Meets the Eye Part 1, Season 1, Episode 1 of G1. That's a whole lot of ones. So, to tell the basic plot of this first episode, you see the Autobots and the Decepticons both on Cybertron. The Autobots make it clear that there is no energy left on the planet, so they take off in the Ark. It's never actually named the Ark in the episode. Alongside that, you have the Decepticons following them. Megatron leaves one of his sub-commanders, Shockwave, behind on Cybertron. We'll get to him later. He's not going to matter for a few episodes. And then after that, the Decepticons catch up with the Autobots. There's a big fight in space. Eventually, both ships crash land. The Decepticons come back online. And through a little bit of misfortune and also Starscream being a little bit of an idiot, the Autobots also come back online. We have a little bit of a feeling outstage. The Decepticons are learning where to get energy from on the planet because that is the ultimate goal of both sides, is to re-energize their war efforts. The Autobots, meanwhile, are pretty shaken up. They don't really know what to do until near the very end of the episode, in which the Autobots send all their warriors in an attempt to stop the Decepticons. That ends in disaster. Episode 1 ends with an oil rig up in flames, the Decepticons having all the energy that they tried to get from that place, and the Autobots in a really bad situation, many of them trapped under rubble, and Optimus Prime doing his best to save two humans named Spike and Sparkplug. It's easy to say that going forward, the Decepticons are not going to have many decisive victories. Season 1, Episode 1 ends in what can only be described as Megatron wins. He absolutely trounced Optimus Prime, and the Autobots stood no chance against the Decepticons. The big thing I want to do in these reviews is mention when we're introduced to important characters. And it being the pilot, we were introduced to a bunch. So to go down the list, I want to see if I can remember all of them off the top of my head. There was Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Wheeljack, Ironhide, Ratchet, Jazz, Trailbreaker, Prowl, Blue Streak, Cliff Jumper, Hound, Mirage, Huffer, Brawn, Gears, Windcharger, I don't know, Sideswipe Sunstreaker. There we go. I got all 18. I almost forgot about the twins. I forgot about Sideswipe Sunstreaker. And by the way, there's a 19th one, Hauler, who was never coming back. But those were the 19, really 18, original Autobots. And they're joined by human allies, Sparkplug and Spike Witwicky. Meaning that ultimately we have 21 good guys introduced in one 22-minute episode. And then on the bad guy side, the Decepticons, we have Megatron, Soundwave, Shockwave, Starscream, Skywarp, Thundercracker, Ravage, Rumble, Laserbeak, and Reflector. We did not see Buzzsaw and we did not see Frenzy in this first episode. Also, I should probably name some of the generics. We did technically get our first look at Hotlink, Nova Storm, and Ion Storm. They are not named, and they are not going to show up again until later on in Season 1, and even then they will not be named. But there we are. You have introduced the entire core cast of Transformers, aside from Season 3 editions, and then later editions in IDW, such as Windblade, who I would honestly say is now part of the core cast. So, a tremendous amount of characters to go through. Most of them got no lines. The point of a pilot episode is to introduce you to the world. Not just the setting, but also what the stakes are going to be, what the tone of the show is going to be, and the characters we are going to follow. And keep in mind, this is technically only part one of what was supposed to be a 3-part first episode, a pilot episode. However, just taking part one by itself, you don't get much personality from anyone. Optimus Prime has a handful of lines, and we do see him going to save Spike and Sparkplug at the very end of the episode, but we don't get much of a feel for his personality. We get a pretty good feel for Jazz, as well as Wheeljack and Bumblebee, and that's mostly just because we see them with a handful of different Autobots, and so you can get the contrast a little bit more. Hound and Cliffjumper are very similar. Honestly, you get more personality out of Cliffjumper than out of Hound, but those are the Autobots that probably got the most shine. In terms of the Decepticons, not much. To the point where many very notable Decepticons, like Starscream, Skywarp, and Thundercracker, have outright incorrect voices. I'm not saying the right voice actor is using a different voice. I'm saying Starscream is voiced by Frank Welker for the first few seconds he's on screen, and it is very weird. That said, another thing I want to do with these episodes is give an MVP award. Basically, what character did I think really shined the most in the episode? And for More Than Meets the Eye, part one, it's Starscream. Starscream probably has the most dialogue out of any character. He has a lot of great early signs of deception with Megatron. He's the one that makes the Autobots wake back up. He has 2 really, really good lines that really define his character. Not the least of which being when he looks Megatron in the eye and says, "Time makes all things possible. I can wait." It's a great introduction to Starscream, and it helps that Chris Lauda is easily one of the single most talented voice actors in the entire cast, something that still shines through 40 years after that episode debuted. At the end of the day, the first episode of G1 was there. It was a vibe. It was able to give you a decent idea as to what the stakes are going to be, and that we're not going to be seeing horrible dismemberment in the show. I do wish that we saw more from characters. I feel like if I was a professional reviewer back in the day, I might have been very iffy on the fact that there's so many characters introduced and so many of them don't even have dialogue. At the same time, the characters who did have a spotlight, I think, made a great presentation for themselves. Wheeljack, Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, Jazz. I think those toys would have sold very well after this first episode. I think Soundwave and Megatron were probably carried on the fact that they're very clearly powerful villains, and Soundwave has the infinite cool factor. But as I said, I think that the single character that had the spotlight put on them the most was Starscream, and that's probably going to be a recurring theme with the entire show going forward. And at the end of the day, I'd say that it was a perfectly fine first episode. It still has 2 more parts to go, and it's not like I hated watching it. I had a blast watching it, and I had a blast recording the commentary track for you guys to listen to. So all I can say is, if you want to give G1 a go, but maybe don't want to rewatch it, or maybe you just don't have the attention span to really lock into what is ultimately a pretty cheap cartoon from the 80s, feel free to give that audio track a listen. I'm going to link it here. It's on my main YouTube page. That way, you can watch it, and it's going to be like you and me are watching it together, because I just thought that would be fun to do. Starscream was the superstar of the day. My only question is he going to be the best character in parts 2 and 3 of this episode? Alongside that, guys, I really want to hear from, people who would have been around for G1. I know a lot of the people in our community right now, they were actually there. They remember G1. And I just want to know, how did it resonate back then? Were kids immediately into it? Was it a thing that kind of gathered steam over time? Or was it just another show that was on at the time, like He-Man? And alongside that, how does it resonate to fans a lot younger than me? I want to hear from some of the people who came in because of Transformers 1, just as much as I want to hear from people who came in because of Transformers Generation 1. Because that's what I think is the most interesting thing about going back and watching this cartoon right now, is we've had a whole mess of generations in between 1984 and 2024. And I want to know just, what's the general feeling? on this episode now. Go back and watch it for yourself. I would love to have these conversations down in the comments below. And aside from that, guys, thank you for watching. And if this does well, we're going to go through each and every episode in G1. We're going to go through each and every episode. That's 96 episodes. We're going to be doing this for 2 years.